Hello, welcome to another video of CS106A, assignment 4 for Hangman, Milestone 1, part 2. In this part I'll be completing the method for playGame, and before we get started again I will show you a flowchart. So here originally we have the class called Hangman, and originally we created the methods called setupGame, wordPicker, wordFirstUpdate, and guessControlUpdate. Now we're going to get into the second half of the program called the playGame part. And here we're going to come up with 4 different methods, one called checkLetter, checkWinLoss, wordUpdate, and validGuess. Now, if you're wondering, what I did was, in the first method, wordFirstUpdate, it's the update that you create using the dashes. In the following method, wordUpdate, it's the update that gets printed out after every single guess. And if the guess does hit a letter, then it will modify that and print that new set. Now, wordUpdate doesn't modify it. The checkLetter is the one that modifies that. So, anyways, let's get into our program. Okay, so let's minimize that. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to figure out what to start with. Now, since it's something where we want to repeat trying guesses, so we want to repeat your guess, that guess is correct, or that guess is wrong, word now looks like this. Okay, so to do that, it's really good idea to use a loop, especially a while loop, since we don't know how many times it's going to go through its cycle. So we'll use the trick while true. Okay, and here we'll create the first line. So while true what? Well, while true we want to take in a guess. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a local variable called guess, and then we're going to put the read line into the guess. And read line is, it reads any input of a string and it puts it into the string called guess. So we'll put some prompt right there, your guess for the string guess. Okay. Now the one thing you need to make sure you do is to modify the guess to make sure it's an uppercase value, because in Hangman Lexicon the words that it's given to you are all in uppercase, and when you check the char value, a lowercase letter and an uppercase letter are different values. So make sure you change it to uppercase. So we're going to set guess and make it uppercase by using guess dot to uppercase. Okay, so by changing the guess string to uppercase, we replace the string guess with that uppercase value. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is to check to see if our guess is a valid guess, right? So that's what we're going to do. And what I'm going to do in this case is make a Boolean type method that will return true if it's a valid guess and return false if it's not. Now, what happens if it's not a valid guess? Well, you want to have it take your guess, so that you can attempt to retrieve a valid guess. So you want to have the person keep on guessing until they give you a correct guess. And what's that correct guess? It's a letter, whether it's lowercase or uppercase, but a letter, a single letter. So not 2 letters, not 3 letters, just 1 letter. Not even a number. So if it's a number, you want to check to see if it's a number and then say it's invalid. Okay? So the way we're going to do it, while, and I said we're going to create a method that takes in, let's say takes in the string guess and then spits out a Boolean. So I'll call it valid guess. And if that happens to be false, then we want it to repeat our lines again. So that'd be guess equals to read line, and then it'd be your guess again, like that. And then of course you want to change it to uppercase, so to uppercase, just like that. Okay. And then let's go ahead and work on that method for valid guessing. Okay, so let's create that step for it, private. Now remember, we made it so that it is going to return a boolean of true or false. So we want to return a boolean, and once we do that, we want to make sure that one of the parameters is that string that we put in. Okay, so we're going to put in a parameter called string guess. Now, some people wondered, why did I use string guess? Well, the string guess here, this parameter, does not overlap with this variable guess out here. The variable guess out here is the variable that works in playGame. Okay, and that is only used as an input for validGuess. The guess here is a local variable for the validGuess method. So this guess will work with this method. It doesn't necessarily work with this guess here, so they're not going to overlap. So that's the difference with local variables and how it gets used. So you want to keep that in mind. These two guesses are actually different. This guess is actually acting just as an input. This guess here is a local variable to this guess here, this validGuess method. Okay. So here we want to create a boolean. So if, let's say, that guess, okay, is longer than one letter, then of course we want to have it return false. Because if it returns false, it's gonna ask for another guess. Does that make sense? Okay, and then we want to make sure that if it's a digit, so how are you gonna do that? Else if, this is where we use character, okay, to check if it's a digit. And then what's the digit? If the guess is a digit. Now notice how it says char ch. So the guess is a string. Make sure you use guess and then change it to a char. And since it's a character of one length, you will do char at 0, okay, because it's only one in length. And then you go ahead and close the parentheses here, like so, okay. And then what do you want it to do? Still, you want it to return false, okay. Now, if it's not greater than 1, and if the character is not a digit, then you want it to obviously return true, okay. So false if it doesn't match, true if it does. So if it's false, it's going to repeat these two lines right here until you give it a valid guess. Pretty cool? Yeah. Okay, so anyways, that's how you create that. And let's continue with what we need to do. So obviously, after we get the appropriate guess, what do you want to check? You want to now check the letter. Okay, so you plug in the guess into the checkLetter, and let's go ahead and make our method for checkLetter. So private, and we can make it void because we're not going to return anything. checkLetter, and then again string, create that local variable for that method. Guess, okay, as long as you're not confused, that's totally fine. And then what we're going to do is create the method for checkLetter. So how are we going to do it? Well, first of all, you need to know if the actual guess is in the secret word, right? So the easiest way to do that is to use a method called index of. Alright, so here's how it works. If, I'll make it a conditional statement, that secret word, okay, index of the guess, okay, that we just stuck in there, returns a -1, because that's what happens when the guess is not in the word, then what we want to do is say that our guess counter gets subtracted by 1, and we want to print a statement that says there are no of that letter. Okay, so no of that guess. Guess. So if it's A's in the word. Period. Okay. So then that's what happens if that guess is not a valid guess. Okay. So now what would you do if it's the other way around? What if it actually worked? Okay, well else, because it's either going to be, not in the guess, or it's going to be in the guess. So if it's going to be in the guess, what do we do? Then we want to search for that word and replace it. So for is the best loop to use here because the for statement allows you to count as long as the length of the word. So for int I, initialize that, is less than the length of the secret word, then I plus plus, right? Excuse me. And here we want to see if the actual letter matches. So if the secret word character at that index of I, because we're going to check it for each letter of the word, if that index of I is equal to the guess.char at 0, because there's only one letter that we're checking it with, and I'll tell you why later, but make sure that it doesn't include the first letter of the word, because the first letter of the word you're going to have to do something special with it, okay? So if it matches with the second letter, third letter, fourth letter, any of those letters, as long as it's not the first, then this is what we're going to do. We're going to stitch the word together. So the guess hidden word, remember at the very beginning, is made up of dashes, right? Well, we want to replace one of those dashes with the letter that it matches with. So that's what I mean by stitching. So when you go ahead and use guess hidden word, okay, because it originally was made of dashes, is equal to guess hidden word. And if you don't know about them now, guess hidden word, since it's a string, you can use a method called substring. That's how you stitch it together from 0 to where the location of the word letter is, and then replace that with your guess, okay, and then stitch the rest of them, rest of the word, guess hidden word dot substring again, from the spot after the letter to the end. And you don't need to add a comma to what end, because it just goes automatically to the end. If you just leave it like I plus 1, it counts the next letter over, and then it just stitches the rest together. Oh, I put a T in there by accident. Okay, so that's how you stitch the letter if it's the second letter, third letter, fourth letter of the word. Okay. Now, if the situation is the first letter, so if you have the same condition, except this time it's the first letter, so I is equal to 1, or I is equal to 0, then what do you want to do in this case? Well, here, the way we stitch it is like this. Guess hidden word now becomes the guess. See how it's different now compared to the other algorithm? Guess plus guess hidden word, and then stitch the rest of it. Substring I plus 1. Okay? So that's how you stitch the word back together, by taking out that dash and replacing it with the letter. Okay? And then, do we need to do anything else here? Well, yeah, we do. So basically, if we have here, there are no that letter in the word, which says right here, there are no A's in the word. Here, we need to say that guess is correct if it's correct. So make sure you print that out. Print on that guess is correct. Okay. So that's your check letter method right there. Okay. Now moving on. After you check the letter, what do you want to do? You want to check if that is either the winning statement or the losing statement, right? So after you check the letter, you want to check if you won or lost. And the easiest way to do that, excuse me again, is by putting that as a boolean, okay, because it's a check. You see, usually with a check, you want to set that up within a boolean statement, as a condition. Okay, so whenever you're checking something, rule of thumb is make a Boolean statement out of it so that you can use it as a condition for an if statement, or a while statement, or a for statement. Well, not really a for, but more for a while and an if. Okay, so here, if check win-loss, okay, is equal to false. Why? Because if you didn't win and you didn't lose, then what do you want to do? Keep on going, right? So you want to be able to update the word, and you want to put out the number of counters left, right? So here, if you didn't win, if you didn't lose, then you want to update the word, and then you want to update your number of counters. Okay. Now we've already wrote the method for guess counter update, but we didn't write the method for word update yet. So let's do the word update one because that one's a little easy. So private void word update, and then all we're going to do is print that statement. So print the statement. The word now looks like this, and that would be our guess hidden word, like that. See, that one's pretty easy. And now what we need to do is create our method boolean for our checkWinLoss. Okay, so now to work with our method boolean of checkWinLoss, what do we want to do? Okay, well, we obviously want to check to see if it's going to lose, right? So how are we going to do that? Wow, sorry I'm coughing so much today. To check if you lost, the easiest thing to do is just to check your counters, right? So if your counters is equal to 0, then that just means you lost. So you would want to print the loss statement. So let's see what the loss statements are. Ooh, so small. Hold on. Okay, I'll just shorten that. So it says there you want to say you completely hung. That could be wrong in so many different ways. Okay, so print ln, next part, the word was whatever the secret word was. Okay, and then after that you want to finish it with the losing statement. So print ln you lose. Boom. That's done with that one. So that's the losing condition. What about the winning condition? So let's say else if guess hidden word matches, okay, our secret word. Then what do we do? Well, if they match, obviously it means that you won, right? So print ln that guess is correct. Or actually, I wouldn't even need to do that because I already put that in the other method, right? So don't even need that. What I do need is that other part. You guess the word. Okay, so print ln you guess the word secret word. Didn't matter which one you did. Guess hidden word, secret word, still would be the same answer. And then you want to print out that statement. You win, just like that. Okay. Now, one big thing that I missed. We said that this method is a boolean, so we want to return true if you've lost, or if you won, right? So that's what we're going to do. So after you print that last statement, we want to return a true value. Same thing, if you wanted to say you won, you still want to return a true value. Why? Because if you look at this conditional statement up here, it says check win loss. If it's false, you want to cycle through these parts right here. Okay, it would update the word, it would update the guess counter. Okay, but if you won, notice how it's not there anymore. So if you won, it would not go through those two methods. So true, it would kick out of this if statement. False, it would cycle through those two methods. Okay, so a little bit of a trick there. Okay. If it returns true for a loss, returns true for a win, we want to return false if none of those work, right? Okay. Now going back to our method of play game, we want to be able to end this game because, again, we have this in a while true statement. So the best way to do it, if this happens to be true, so that would be all else, right? Then that means that you want to break. So it'd break out of that while loop when you're done. Okay, so that's a pretty handy thing. That's the reason why whenever you check something, you want to make that as a boolean, because then you can put it into a condition, and if you want to break out of the loop, you can put it within the same condition as the else. So that's the reason why I have you do it. So you can see the play game method is a very nice, concise little bug, little guy there, with all these other methods. Okay. Wow. I'm so sorry. Normally I'm not this congested, but anyways, let me go ahead and play this. Okay. We're going to cheat a little bit. Alright. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That looks like fuzzy. So, F, U, seems working. Z, Y. I guess is correct. You guess the word, you win. Nice. What about another case? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so that's gonna probably be, well, I don't know. An E, huh? Okay, so could be slither. There we go. Okay, but I don't want to get it right this time, so let's do 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There we go. There are no Y's. You're completely hung. Word of slither, you lose. Okay, well that's the end of the console program. I know it took longer than it normally would, 22 minutes, but if you like the way I coded this, and if you have any questions, just go ahead and like and subscribe and write it in the comments, and I'll try to answer your questions. Thanks a lot.